The verse that comes to mind for this podcast is Matthew 19:23 through 24. Truly I say to you, only with difficulty will a rich person enter the kingdom of heaven.
Sometimes God allows certain people to get rich because he knows that they will pour into the kingdom. Do you see what I'm saying?
But everybody who gets money, they're always saying, God blessed me. God blessed me. And every time money comes, it's a God blessed me.
Blessing or burden?
Burden.
See?
It's a curse. I think the higher you go, the richer
You
you
think
become, the greater
wealthy
the burden
people
is.
got it easy?
Oh, man.
It's a burden.
Do you guys go to like the dollar store? Do you know what that is?
Something, yeah, says something. Something ain't right. Something ain't right. I said something, yeah, said something. Something ain't right.
Something ain't right.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Something Ain't Right. We just came from the High Tower unit, and we are energized because those men had us energized. And this show tonight is something unique. I don't think I've ever watched any show like it, and I'm excited about what we're going to do. And before we get started, I'm your host, Ep.9, but I always have my great host to my right. Tell us who you are.
I'm his lovely co-host, Jessica.
His other lovely co-host, Whiteout.
You're so lovely, Whiteout. And this episode is called When Riches Ruin the Soul. I know that don't make sense, but I want you to think about it. Everybody who gets money, they're always saying, God blessed me. God blessed me. And every time money comes, it's a God blessed me. But Scripture warns us that riches can quickly destroy your soul. And so when I think about that, something ain't right when we chase money the most and we pursue that as blessings. And so I've brought in two special guests that have had the ability to get wealthy. And they're awesome men, and you're going to learn a lot more about them through this podcast. And as always, we want to introduce them to you. So across the table from me, guys, just introduce yourself. Tell them who you are.
Hi, my name is Jay Harbison. I'm a long-term Houstonian, father of three, been married about 30 years.
Jeez.
And been a Christian since a teenager when I was 13 years old.
When did your hair turn gray, Jay?
Last year. Last year?
Last month.
When you invited me on the podcast.
Yeah.
Good one.
Speaking of hair, my next guest.
Yeah.
Go ahead, tell them who you are. Man.
My name's Mike Coffey. I'm a father of two. I have a 6-year-old daughter, 8-year-old son. I've been, like Jay, been a Christian most of my life, since I was probably 12 years old, so 33 years.
Wow.
Grown up in the Houston area.
Seasoned Christians. As you can see, we got some seasoned Christians. I want to get right into it. The verse that comes to mind for this podcast is Matthew 19:23 through 24. Truly I say to you, only with difficulty will a rich person enter the kingdom of heaven. Again, I tell you, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich person to enter the kingdom. And so what I want to know from you guys is, how do you personally interpret that verse in your walk with God? But before you go into that, give us like a 1-minute overview of your life to how you got wealthy today. Just whatever you can share. Was it inherited? Was mom and daddy passed it down? Did you work hard? Tell us how you got to become wealthy.
It's interesting because you always hear the term self-made, right? And there's probably the inclination for me to say that I'm self-made because I didn't come from money. But
your parents weren't wealthy. You didn't inherit any money.
I mean, my dad, he had his own company, so I learned entrepreneurship from him. But unfortunately, he went bankrupt a couple of times. So I've seen him make a lot of money, but then lose all of it. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So anyway,
did that leave a stain on you? Like maybe having money is not everything, or did it make you want to work much harder than your dad did?
I don't know. I think it made me see how fleeting it can be.
Okay.
You know what I mean? How you can lose it, in an instant. I think that's what I learned. And then also, seeing failure firsthand, close up, makes you really study failure and then how to avoid it, risk avoidance, So,
what about you?
So I did come from money per se. My dad was an attorney. I grew up in Champion Forest when it was kind of like the up and coming suburb area.
Okay. That's Houston, Texas, y'all.
Yeah, Houston, Texas. But all that changed, when I was 12 because he died in a car accident. So, that kind of changed the trajectory of my life. So I guess the temptation is also there, right, to say that I was self-made because it didn't come from anything that I inherited from my dad or from, anybody else.
You guys worked from the bottom.
I was definitely.
You didn't have I think Trump, they always go at him because they say well, you were handed $1 million from your daddy, right?
Yeah.
That's what most people say. But for you guys, you literally didn't have a. Well, tell them what you do. What industry are you in? And then, was that something you learned from somebody, and then they gave you something? I just want to establish if you guys worked for it, if it was handed to you.
You want to go first, Jay?
Go ahead, Mike.
Okay. So, yes, I learned it from another guy. It was an older gentleman who basically gave me and my best friend the opportunity to start a Houston branch of his San Antonio-based company. And he taught us the business, and that's kind of where we picked it up. And then, unfortunately, his business during 2008, 2009 kind of went under, not 100%, but, he started getting tax liens and all kinds of things. And, we were working for him, and our paychecks were getting further and further out. So, we eventually made the decision to start our own company, but we learned it from him.
Yeah.
So in that essence, it was given to us, and I still view it that way.
But it was given to you a lot less than it is today. You've grown it tremendously.
Oh, yeah.
Tremendous.
Yeah,
It wasn't
sure.
like you were like a millionaire
No,
early
no,
on,
no.
or he was where you are today.
No.
No.
Not
You had to
even
work.
close.
You had to work. You had to grind.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing unique about you is that you come from doing some prison time. And so this happened after you were already incarcerated. You got a record.
Yeah.
Yeah, you okay with that?
Oh, yeah. No. I have to be okay with it.
Yeah. Well, you just got back from a prison today telling everybody
Yeah.
how
I'm
God,
good with it.
did this after prison. And
Yeah, I'll share kind of the same thing I shared, this evening at that prison was, there was a time where I could have gone to an attorney, right, and said, hey, I want to get this thing removed off my record, get it expunged so that way when I walk into the room with everybody else, no one knows, right? But I felt like God was telling me at that time that, what have I withheld from you, or what can you not do that you want to do? And I really couldn't give him an answer. So, at that point I just kind of dropped it.
so quick little plug, if you need some tile flooring, go see my man at Intex Flooring. All right, Jay, how is your story a little different?
So, the weird part, you ever see on TV or something, they're talking about how some guy is an instant success, they came out of nowhere, and then all of a sudden they're a famous movie star, for example. What do they call that all the time, overnight success?
Yeah.
So, lots of times people will look at me or my life and say, golly, he's like the golden boy. He's the golden child, and everything he touches. My mother-in-law will say stuff like that. My wife will say stuff like that. They said, I've never seen someone touch so many different things, and everything turns out right, turns out golden. And so, but it's like that person that was that overnight success, they didn't see the grind. They didn't see Shawshank Redemption, that mile of poop that you had to crawl through to get to freedom on the other side. Wow. You know what I mean? So, I don't see it that way at all. I see the work and I see the mindset. I think a millionaire has a mindset, and it starts with living below your means, right?
Absolutely.
Starts with,
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Oh, yeah.
if you made $1 million but you spent 2, guess what? You're bankrupt. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So anyway, but so I'm an oil and gas. That's what I do for a living. I call that my day job. We owned a marketing and trading company, so we truck crude oil and trade crude oil, and we have trucks and terminals, and we move it on barges and stuff like that. And but ironically, I probably made my wealth reading like Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and then investing in real estate, really, because I think that's like the cheat code, right? I think it's an advantaged way to make money. Early on, in my career, I was working for Shell Oil and I was working for Enron, and I was fantastically wealthy in my 20s, did really, really well, and then lost it all because Enron went bankrupt.
Jeez.
And so I had to start all over. And then when I started all over, I said, I'm going to have to reinvent myself and do it different, So I think a lot of people in their life have a chance to make a lot of money, but they probably suffer some consequence like I did, like my dad did, But anyway, I just feel, though, incredibly blessed. Early on you talked about, the eye of the needle and the camel and whatnot. And really, I feel like, if we are prideful and we have that mindset, like maybe we're deserving of it, or maybe, what's the right term I'm looking for, Mike? I don't know. You can really get full
Entitled.
of yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great adjective. Yeah. But me, I just feel so humbled, so blessed, and I don't deserve it. You know what I mean?
But being wealthy, being rich, says it's harder for you guys to get into heaven than for us, because I know none of them are millionaires.
You don't know that.
Girl, I know where you live.
Dang.
You got some $150 Jordans on, and all of a sudden you like, I'm balling. Look at me.
Yeah, right.
Different level right here, different league.
Next level.
No, but it's harder for you guys to get to heaven according to that scripture. What do you think that means for you? How do you interpret that, man?
So, it was funny. I think that scripture can be kind of interpreted in a couple of ways, right? It's great. It says great difficulty has to come, right? Well, I don't know. Maybe I got around some of that a little bit because I felt like I did go through great difficulty in my life. And not that I earned it, right? But it really showed me that everything that we do and everything that we become is really a gift from God. Because I honestly, go to prisons and do those type of ministry events because I feel like I can relate to those guys, and they instantly, you see just a kind of a wall just drop whenever you say, oh, well, I've been to prison. Oh, okay. And now I can relate to them, and I think that's a gift from God. So when I value riches, that may be the riches that the Bible's actually talking about, and not the physical riches.
You don't see it as just the money part, the financial part.
Yeah, because it was really a gift from God, because now I'm doing things that actually have some eternal purpose, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be value beyond this life.
Yeah, you got rich after. Yeah. You got rich after you got saved.
Right.
After you had done prison time.
Right.
A little different from Jay, because this has been a part of your. Since 20. You said you had money 21, I think. And so, what makes it harder from the life you live? From the things you got. Why is it harder for a rich man to enter the kingdom? What comes along with being rich?
So I'm going to spin that verse on its head for a second.
Spin it like Bill O'Reilly.
All right?
No
Because
spin zone.
I think sometimes God allows certain people to get rich because he knows that they will pour into the kingdom. Do you see what I'm saying?
Okay.
So I'm not saying it's not hard to get there, to be rich, but I also think God entrusts, like Mike was talking about, I feel like God has blessed me. I could sit here today and tell you I'm self-made, which is something I said earlier, but I know in my heart of hearts I'm not self-made at all. I'm made by him. Do you know what I mean? And that I really feel like sometimes at night, I mean, literally sometimes at night, I think sometimes God speaks to me in a dream, whispers in my ear, or lays out my footsteps so that I'm successful. There's no way the number of different businesses and things that I've invested in that have all been so successful that I can sit here today and tell you, man, that was all me. You know what I mean? So, I was thinking about, just the other day, you ever seen that guy like in the gym that works out and he says, I got a lot of problems. He's got a big chest and it says, but bench press ain't one of them. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And so I got a lot of problems. Knowing how to make money, it's not one of them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, there is a scripture in the Old Testament that says God has given you the ability to get wealth.
I'm telling you, I think God blesses me because he's instilled in my heart the understanding, the belief that I didn't do it without his help, and he didn't bless me with all of that for me to just keep it to myself. You know what I mean?
Okay, but I gotta challenge you on something, because when I think of the rich people I know, right, there are some rich people that I see why it's hard for them to get into heaven. They're very prideful. They can buy happiness. We know happiness is temporary, but the joy of the Lord is permanent. And so when they're feeling a lack of happiness, just go pay for it. Take a vacation, go spend some money at the mall, things like that, like filling that void, and the money helps them to do that. Whereas those who are poor or, living, just surviving month to month, check to check, there's a different dependency on God for them, right? So you have rich friends. You see people you're around. You're dealing with shrewd businessmen. I don't think they would have the same mentality that you guys have, because I know y'all have been around some men where you're like, yeah, it's going to be hard for him to get into heaven because he really thinks he's done it all.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree with you on that for sure. But, when I was doing some studying and preparing for, just talking with you guys, there's a rich man that's mentioned in the Bible. The rich man is Joseph of Arimathea, right? And he was the one who went to Pilate and asked for Jesus' body, and then got that and put it in the tomb of his family, right? And he was part of the Sanhedrin, so he was a Pharisee. So there's always two sides to each scripture, right? And taking it into context. But yes, I think comfort is probably one of the number one enemies to anybody's spiritual walk, especially if you fall into the trap of saying, like, I did it myself. Because that's like game over to me.
Yeah, and Trey, what would you just to define? Is there like a magic number for what rich means, or like, are we rich?
I think there's a wealth class in America. I mean, let's talk about America. Let's keep it America, because if we compare ourselves to other countries, we're probably all rich. But there's a wealth class in America. There's a middle class, and then there's a poverty class. So wealth class, I don't know where it starts at, but it's definitely six figures. And up, but millionaires, in terms of wealth, I'm thinking millionaires.
Millions and up.
So did you want to comment on that as well, as far as,
I think I got to excuse myself. No.
Do you see why it's harder?
When
you look at some of other.
I'm going to ask Mike a question. Blessing or burden?
Burden.
See?
It's a curse. I think the higher you go, the richer you become, the greater
wealthy
the burden
people
is.
got it easy.
Oh, man.
It's a burden.
Why?
Well, that brings me to the next question, because there's a scripture that warns us to not set your heart on riches. Psalm 62:10, when riches increase, do not set your heart on them.
Yeah.
So how do you avoid that? How do you avoid, man, you know what, I could do a little more. I could get a little more. My company's growing, I get a little more. Like, how do you prevent your heart from getting set on these things? Either one of you.
For me, it's never growing attached to the things that God has put into my life. Number one, but number two, it's making sure that I'm giving away and helping and doing as much ministry work as possibly can. And
So the more you make, you look at it as opportunity to give.
yes,
Wow.
yeah.
That's unique. See, y'all are different than most, which is great. That's why I brought you in here. I know what you guys do privately with your money, but I also don't want you to shy away from being real about the realities of a lot of rich people in America and how they don't have that attitude. So the way you prevent yourself from setting your heart on it, I want to make more, I want to make more, I want to get bigger things, is you focus on the giving aspect.
Well, that, and then also, I think the more connected you become with the reality that you're not the one earning the wealth, right? Because even at my company, like, I'm surrounded by a leadership team who is amazing, and all of those people are in, you know, a low-tech industry. There's nothing glamorous about flooring. You know, that is a very, you know, no one gets out of college and says, man, I cannot wait to go apply at the flooring company. You know, that's bottom of the list. But yet I have some of the, you know, most influential leaders I've ever met, and they are the smartest men in the room. It's not me. And so I think the more connected you stay with the reality of what your business is and how the income's earned, it keeps you away from that trap.
So has wealth ever made it harder for you to depend on God than depend on yourself? Because you have the wealth, so.
Why pray, right?
Yeah.
I think the thing that probably me and Jay both struggle with is we see that as an opportunity to go create more wealth. And so then you go put that into something that's leveraging you in another way. And so then now you're back out on the limb again going, well, the only way that this is going to work is if God does something. At least, you know, that's what I feel like it is. It's God uses it to build my faith.
That's good.
So I like strategy games. And to me, creating wealth, running businesses, making money, it's a game. It's just a strategy game. And I don't take it too serious. And so, you know, the Bible teaches us that don't let the left hand know what the right hand's doing. And really that passage of the Bible means to give freely, right? Don't sit there and try to count what you're doing when you're giving it. Just give it freely. And it also talks about when you hold on to things, hold on to them with an open hand, you know, because, you know, A, you can't take it with you, right?
Yeah.
And B, you're probably giving yourself too much credit if you think you did it all. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And, you know, Dr. Young at Second Baptist really challenged the congregation, but I really felt like he was talking to me that day in church when he was talking about tithing and giving. And I remember because early on in my 30s, I really struggled with giving. And so I was making money. I knew how hard it was to make money and save money, and I wanted the money to grow. And the last thing I wanted to do was give 10% of it away. Like 10%? Like, are you kidding me? Really? That's a lot. You know how hard I work for that? And so his message, though, that day was, if you only have enough faith to give 1%, then just give 1%. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to start off and I'm going to give a little. And then as I gave a little, as I took a step in faith, then God increased my faith. And then I started giving 2%, and then 3%, and then 4%. And I remember I climbed that mountaintop, and I'm giving 10%. And I'm like, woo, I'm doing it. You know, that's what the Bible says. I'm giving 10%. I'm all excited and everything. And then I'm in church one day, and he asked a question. He goes, are you giving on the gross or the net? And I'm like, get out of here. You got to be kidding me. Like, you know how hard I work to get it to 10%. And of course it's on the net. It's not on the gross. You know what I mean? And now you want me to give on that? So I did. I took that step in faith, and I was like, golly. But I asked a question. I was like, how did you get there? And he goes, well, let me ask you a question. Do you want him to bless you on the gross, or do you want him to bless you on the net? And I was like, oh, you got me there, didn't you? You know? So, because we want a bountiful blessing. We don't want a partial blessing. So then I had to take a step further in faith, and I started tithing off of the gross, which was much harder. But then years later, he did this to me. It made me mad. I was mad. I sat there in the pew. And he said, if you make $100,000 a year and you give 10%, he goes, that's probably appropriate. He goes, you make $1 million a year And you give 100,000, couldn't you give a little more?
Wow.
And I was like, get out of here. You know, I was like,
Well, he got
just
that speech down.
stop
Yeah.
it. Just stop it, you know?
He got that speech down.
And so I really thought about it, but really it came down to, like, where are blessings coming from? And can you outgive God? Like, have I ever missed a dollar that I gave, you know? And the answer was no. I didn't miss it, you know? And you got to remember, for me, mentally, it's kind of a game anyway. It's like, you can't take any of it with you. You got to get rid of it all before you go. So I am all about growing it, but I'm also all about giving it. And over time, God, you know, certain times, you know, it's funny because, you know, there's a couple times, and maybe you've gotten this too, Mike, where you get like a big windfall from something. Okay, you get a big, and you weren't really expecting it. I've gotten a big windfall, and then I'm thinking, like, how much do I need the tithe of this? Because 10% don't feel right, and it's like, so in a step of faith, I'm like, I'm going to give 35% of it, you know, 35% of it, and anyway, but you know, it just keeps coming. You know?
How do we know you don't love money? Yeah. How do we know that you guys don't love money? And I don't know, that may be looking at some examples of people that do, but they don't know you.
Mm-hmm.
How do they know you don't love money?
I bet Mike loves it.
Because the love of money is the root of all evil.
Yeah.
Right? It's okay to make money. So I wonder how that comes across to you guys.
Well, I mean, I think if you are kind of tied in the way that Jay's talking about, where you're seeing every amount that comes in as an opportunity to, like, give more. I don't know, from my experience, what limited perspective I have, I feel like that is not something that someone who loves money, right? Because typically, you know, the Bible talks about it in Luke, like this, you know, rich man has a field, he grows produce, and then it's so much that he's like, man, I'm going to create these barns and I'm going to store it there and I'm going to retire and live the rest of my days. And, like, man, I don't know about you guys, but that sounds like the American dream, right?
Yeah.
You know, that's basically what we say it is.
Savings, retirement.
Yeah, I'm going to retire, man, and
Investments.
then I'm going to be on easy street, and you know, and then it says that God, you know, basically took his life from him that
He said,
night.
"You fool!
Yeah,
this
you
very
fool."
night your life will be
Yeah.
demanded." of you."
Yeah, and you won't, and the person who's going to spend all of your money is going to be somebody you don't even know who they are. And so,
So you don't have a bunch of big barns you're storing up in.
Yeah, no barns. You know, that's kind of what Jay was talking about, living below your means. I think, you know, when you first start your business, like, that's the only that's the only option you have. In order for that business to do well. They say that the average, you know, business that is worth, you know, multi-millions, right? They usually spend the first 20 years of that just reinvesting into the company. And I know that for my business, it's been at least the first 12 years where, you know, yes, we had a salary, and yes, we were able to do things, you know, that most people probably, you know, weren't able to do, but it wasn't anything like, you know, extravagant.
You didn't have like 10 cars in the garage,
No
5
jet.
garage. Like rappers do that. Yeah,
no
rappers do.
jewelry.
Private jet.
Yeah, you're not spending a bunch of money on expensive jewelry. You guys just plain.
Well, I think that, like, people who are wealthy don't spend their money on jewelry, don't spend their money on shoes and, like, all this flashy things.
Well, a lot of
that
them
we see.
do.
I mean, like, rappers, secular rappers, but, like, real wealthy people. Like, I come from oil and gas. None of them men wore big old flashy jewelry or rings and, like, piece and chains. They just did it.
Yeah.
They
But they're
don't.
worth $1 million.
Yeah. Yep. Some of them you would never know.
Well, they would have got made fun of at the country club if they did.
That's true. That's true.
That's a cultural thing.
That's a cultural
That's
thing.
a cultural thing.
Yeah.
I
But
think
they might have had the Lamborghini in the lot.
I think in the
Right.
oil and gas industry, because I'm in that industry, it's like, act like you belong here. You know what I mean? So don't act a fool. You know.
Yeah.
I think there's a conservative bent in that industry. You know,
Yeah.
where you don't flaunt it, but there are definitely, in every industry though, there are people that flaunt it. You know. But I think the mindset has to be, I believe, you have to live below your means, right? So that requires discipline. And I feel like I'm disciplined investor, disciplined businessman, if you will. And that's probably why I do have, is because of that discipline. And I think the Bible tells us that if you're faithful in a little, the Lord will give you more, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it's that faithfulness, you know? So.
That's good.
Nice. You know the verse that says no servant can serve two masters, right? And then it goes to saying he cannot serve God and money. Was there a time where you ever felt that you were a servant to money? And did you have like any accountability to help you come out of that? Or how do you like safeguard yourself now from that?
I mean, I don't. To me, I mean, you have to know. It feels like it's just a game, and we're all about just trying to win, you know, and just make good decisions. You know, it really is. I don't like if I will beat you in Monopoly and I have all that Monopoly money. That's literally how it feels to me. You know, it's like at the end of the day when the game's over. You know, it was just a game, you know, and really, you know, you choose where you want to store up your treasure, right? You want to store it up here on earth. You want to have 3 houses, but you can only live in one of them. You want to have 10 cars, but you can only drive one, you know. It just, to me, it doesn't make sense, you know. So I think things that are in excess, they repulse me, you know. I have needs, and I do like nice vacations, and I do like nice meals and a nice bottle of wine and this and that and the other. But at some point, I'm also the guy that just ate at Cafe Express before I came here to meet with you tonight, you know. So, you know, it's just a simple thing like a sandwich I appreciate, you know. So,
Do you guys go to like the dollar store? Do you know what that is?
Do you know what that is?
Dollar General.
Dollar Tree.
That's hilarious.
Just messing with you.
I was just in the dollar store about 2 weeks ago.
I love the dollar store.
That's cool. So I would say, like, what I'm learning is that it's kind of where your mentality's at and your heart's at, right? Because, you know, there's a saying called, like, hood rich. And I remember times in my life when, you know, we used to do a little bit of hustling. You get, like, $400, $800 in a day, but you spend it the same day. And then the next day you're like, man, I shouldn't have did that. Right? But it's like an impulse because I guess you don't have it. You just wild out. But for you guys, it's kind of different, right? You don't serve it. You know how to make it serve you, I guess you could say.
You know how to manage.
Well, I think if you have the mindset of if you're giving away something, right, you know, that has little value to you, and it's not because it's worth little. It's just that you know what the scriptures say and what God talks about money and how valuable it is to Him, and you kind of treat it the same way that Jesus did. He was like, well, you know, if it's Caesar's, give it to Caesar's. If it's man, give it to man. You know. And he's pulling money out of fish's mouths, right? So it's like, in the same way, God's given us the gift and ability to create that wealth and to keep from serving money, right? I think that those type of realities you have to keep in mind, right? Is that I don't think you go and do the things that are like outside of, you know, serving in your church or giving money away or looking for opportunities to bless other people at every kind of turn, right? You don't do those things. If you're serving money, you're working 100% of that time to make more of it. You're not spending time with your family. You're not, you know, going to your kids' plays and baseball games and things like that.
That's good.
What safeguards do you put in place when it comes to money, so that these things don't happen to you, so that you don't, well, you know, I'm spending more time at the office than I am being a blessing to others, whether that's going to a prison or whether that's serving somehow, giving back. What safeguards do you put in place to keep yourself from being driven, consumed, fallen into the, as the Bible says, ensnared, you know, by the pursuit of money? Do you have any safeguards, or do you just, hey man, I just live my life, this is what I do? Because y'all make it sound so easy. And it's not easy for most. Like you said, it's like a game to you. Well, if it's a game, a lot of people are losing at that game. But you're obviously good at it. People are gifted and have that ability. And so what are you doing to prevent yourself from it consuming you, consuming your time? Less time with your family, less time serving others. How are you preventing that from happening?
Or how do you balance that?
In some cultures, they talk about take whatever that thing is the most valuable to you and give it away. You ever heard that analogy? I don't know if it's Nepal or, one of I don't know what country it is, but they're disciplined about taking that thing that is the most valuable to them and giving it away. You have to know that I give away so much every year that keeps me grounded. And really the challenge for me is, how do I make more so I can give more? It's like totally backwards. Like, I think some people, if money is really, if it's in your heart of hearts, what you want to do is make money and keep money, then I think that you can become a cold person. Do you know what I mean? And you're all about things.
It's where you forfeit your soul, as it says.
Yeah.
Gain the whole world, but forfeit your soul.
I want to make a lot, and I want to control a lot so that I can give a lot. Because a lot of other people aren't disciplined like me. If they, were hood rich, and they made a lot, they'd probably blow it. Or keep it to themselves, or do something foolish with it. I don't know, diamonds and diamond teeth. You got so much money, you have a grill of diamonds. Like, to me, I use my teeth to eat. Okay.
Well, maybe you don't pay child support, but you got that.
Yeah. Right.
But
that's hood rich.
But I mean, really, part of the challenge is, like, for me personally, I have tithing goals in a year. How do I tithe more and give more away this year than I've ever given away before? Like, who has those kind of goals? It's backwards, you know what I mean? But it's not. But I want to own and control more and more so I can give more and more.
I know you mentioned that you said the 35%, right? That's where you're at now? Like,
now, I want to be clear. That was for a one-time, I got a big payday. Okay. But I will tell you, like, I don't really take the time every year to look at how much I made and how much I gave. But I would say it's definitely trending in that range, though. I can't say that I do it every single time, every single year. Part of it is really, don't let the left hand know what the right hand's doing. But the other thing is sometimes, and I don't know how your business is, if you're a wage earner, if you're a W-2 earner, right, it's real easy to know what you make. When you're a business owner, it's very difficult to know, because you might have to appraise something, you might have to sell something in order to get a windfall. You can't take the building that you have your tile in, for example, and sell the building, because now how are you going to peddle your tile? So if the building's gone up in value, millions of dollars, you can't get rid of it. So your net worth has gone up, but your ability to give hasn't gone up. Do you see what I mean? And that's a conundrum that we run into lots of times in business, is that, we're building this empire and things go up and up and up and up and up. But the accounting rule says that you put something on your books at the lower of, that's the key word, the lower of the cost or the value. So if something cost me $1 million, but it's worth 10, I can't tithe on the 10 because I don't have it. I'd have to sell it. I'd have to sell the land, sell the building, sell the asset. So giving is complicated when you have a lot of things. So you really have to, ask God to guide you and lead you on what the right number and what the right thing is. But my goal is every year is to try to give more than the year before. That's my goal,
It reminds me of like Elon Musk. Like, people say, "Oh man, he could end world hunger because he's a trillionaire," and people that are like, "Well, he doesn't really have $1 trillion because it's all in assets and different things, right?" Question: so as a Christian, through your life, as you increased in wealth, did you feel that made your spiritual battles tougher? Because a lot of people would look at people that have money and be like, "Man, their life is easy." It's the poor people that are struggling spiritually. But as having more wealth, has that made your spiritual life harder? Like, harder to fight battles and go through things, or would you say it's easy?
I think you're playing from an even playing field, because the Bible talks about just spiritual authority in general, and a lot of that is the words that we're speaking out of our own mouth, right? Yeah. The Bible talks about your tongue being a rudder that controls a ship in the way it should go. And if he can control his mouth, he's going to be doing well in life and things like that. And it's like, man, well, then we are all on that playing field. Yeah, money solves like the easy problems. I had a guy tell me one time, he said, if you can write a check for it, then it probably wasn't that big of a problem. And this was a guy at that time, who had way more than I did, and I looked up to. Yeah. And I was like, well, man, if he thinks that, then maybe he's on. Maybe I'm kind of, need to reevaluate what I think problems are.
So I guess I'm a little different. I feel under attack. I feel like I am taking so much ground from the enemy that he's devising strategies to cause me to fail. That's how I feel. Because I want to just keep giving more and more and growing the business more and more. And I think it's gotten noticed by the enemy. That's how I feel.
How does that reflect in your life? Is it health? Is it family, marriage? Like, how does that reflect in your life?
You asked about my gray hair earlier?
Yeah, that's one.
No, I really do. I feel like mentally, I mean, I don't know. Do you feel mentally like you have to stay strong in order to keep doing what you do? Because business is tough. I mean, the world, we're in a tough spot. I think we're technically in a recession right now, even though, nobody will tell you that, and people are spending less. And like I'm in crude oil right now. Crude oil, Trump said drill, baby, drill. And, we were at almost $80 an oil. A barrel for oil when he came in office, and we're at 58 right now. So trust me, my business is under duress, and we've have several lawsuits now against several parties, millions and millions of dollars of lawsuits, and yeah, I mean, I feel like under attack, but I just have to trust that God's got it. You know what I mean? And I just need to focus on the goal, focus on the prize, and the prize is every year I want to grow. I want to grow my net worth. I want to grow the things that I'm have my hand on or over, and I want to give even more than the year before. So I'm not really growing it to get a boat or a plane or another house, you know. I'm growing it because I want to grow it a lot more, to give a lot more, because, I want to see as many people get into heaven as possible. So I have to funnel that money to the ministries. So I do feel a lot of pressure. I do.
It's interesting to hear you, because it's almost like a calling. I think, man, I want to grow more disciples. I want to raise up more disciples. I want to raise up an army. And you're like, man, I want to provide the money to do the ministry, to do that type of stuff. And I don't think people would see being wealthy as a calling, or that God would actually raise you guys up for that.
Yeah.
And I was telling Mike this earlier. I was like, I don't know that I would keep doing what I do if it wasn't for people like y'all. Because when God provides through people like y'all, who you look at God saying, God, provide more, because I want to keep funneling it to your kingdom work, it allows people who are in ministry and nonprofits, churches, to say, man, God has provided. Let's keep going. Let's keep taking ground. So it's almost like a divine system, But oftentimes people wouldn't see y'all as just as valuable to the kingdom as they would see me on the front lines. And I always tell them, like, there's a whole lot behind me. You see me doing a lot, you see me moving, but there's a whole lot behind me. You haven't met some of the people, that are partnered with us that allow us to do this. And so do you ever feel in any way like people might misunderstand the Christian wealthy person as not doing enough in the kingdom because your time is spent making the money to fund, but not actually being out there forefront? Because you got to be in your offices, you got to run your business, you got to check, check out what the stock market's doing if you're in that line of business.
Yeah, and I think sometimes there's probably some rich people out there that give rich people a bad name, right? And then there's probably some rich people out there that probably give them a great name, that people feel blessed because of them, So I think that's, I don't know. I guess it depends upon who's the one throwing the rocks.
You never have that guilt, like, man, am I doing enough?
I think I always, when it comes to big purchase decisions, especially things that I think could be, they're not frugal. It could be
the jet.
Yeah, for example, yeah. Which I don't own one.
Yeah, I know.
But and that's the thing too, because lots of times, listen, I'm telling you, like, to buy another house, to go buy a Ferrari or a Lamborghini, I'm definitely tempted by those things, to buy a plane. I mean, I have friends that have planes, you know, and come on, join the club, and I'm like, I see that personally as really wasteful, I don't need to own the plane. I might need to fly a private plane from time to time, or JSX, if you've ever done that. That's a good one. But there's a lot of ways to kind of cheat the system, in my opinion, where you can have, maybe benefits like that. Like, for example, if you want to go to Colorado and stay in a mountain lodge, you don't have to own it. Just write the check, You don't have to own everything. So, but other people are different. It's like they see a car, they want to own that car. I don't have that urge, Wow. And even though I have some friends that are really, really wealthy, and they're like, come on, do this, and I'm like, I don't feel the need to do that,
Do you think that's just that comes with age? Were you that way when you were younger, 20 years ago?
I think that comes from upbringing, personally,
I think it also comes from knowing the burdens of what those things bring to you, because you buy the plane or you buy the car, and
it ain't cheap to fix
a
Lamborghini.
rabbit hole, man.
You want more or what? Like, for you, that would be considered crucifying the flesh, right? Because all your friends have it, and you got to say, you know what? That's not wise. I'm not going to be peer pressured into it.
Yeah.
So I'm crucifying my flesh by not buying the plane.
Because you want to invest in the kingdom.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely a driver for me personally, and maybe a lot of people aren't that way per se. Like, for example, like I have a close friend of mine. He bought a nice place in Colorado, and I have a timeshare in Colorado. There's a big difference in price between, I don't know, $3-4 million place and getting a timeshare, And then I have friends who have like really nice supercars, and I'm a member of a supercar club, so it's almost like a timeshare for a supercar. So if I ever get the itch to go drive a Lamborghini, I can drive a Lamborghini. I don't have to own it, though. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so that's how I choose. I don't have to own things. I can just go use it and then put it on a shelf and then say, I'm glad I don't own it. Like, every time that I've ever got a Lamborghini or supercar or whatever, and I turn the keys back in, I'm happy to turn it in. Just give me my F-150 pickup truck. I'm so happy driving Houston streets in an F-150, Yeah, I wouldn't want to own that, that beach house or that place in the mountains. I mean, it's a headache. It's a headache, Yeah,
you know what comes with it.
Have you ever bought something that you were like, this is a sin? Like, it just hit you and you were like, oh, man, this is a sin.
This is too much. This is splurging.
I mean, I don't feel
maybe
like
some for my wife.
Even if you did it.
She didn't think so.
I mean, I don't think you can necessarily buy something like based on an amount and call it a sin, unless you're truly like God told you to do something and you're like, no, I'm going to go ahead and buy the Lamborghini or whatever, then yes. But other than that, I'd say no.
Yeah.
For you guys to have the attitude like that you have, the righteous, I just think of righteousness with riches. Are there any particular, because I think of people who listen like, man, if I had that, man, I would do all this in ministry, and man, I would, and most people, when they get it, they don't do it. If you can't be faithful with $1,000 and give a 10th or a 15th or whatever, you're probably not going to do it with 10,000, and you're probably not going to do it with 100,000 or $1 million. I know that for a fact. So is there there's always these secrets to get wealth and these things that are sold to the public, even in the kingdom, even in churches. Man, if you just do this, God's going to bless you with money. And it's a doctrine around getting money and attaining money. But for two guys who don't sit here and try to sell people on, hey, if you're a Christian, get money, go get money. That's the answer to all things. And that's how you're going to be successful. Are there any spiritual disciplines that you think people should observe in your life that keep you from being that type of Christian? It's basically selling everybody the opportunity that you can be wealthy too. Because Jay, you've had to goals coach some people in the ministry, some from very hard places. You've led President's Club and sat around the table with ex-cons who don't have nothing, and you're teaching them 7 habits of highly effective people. But I often think of some people who are like, yeah, man, I'm trying to get that bread. I'm just trying to come up. And they think that if they could be like you and they could be in your, then that would be success for them. So what would you say to those types of people? What type of spiritual disciplines or characteristics should they be pursuing or should they avoid?
I think the key is you have to learn to spend less than what you make. That's where it starts. No matter what income level you are. But think about it just for a second. I want you to really ponder this. If you spend less than you make, you're rich. Think about that. Because it's saying that you really don't need anything other than what you have. Do you know what I mean? And really, it's the want of things, that itch that you can't scratch, right? It's the want of things that makes you feel poor. But if you don't desire those things, then you're rich, So that's what I would say. And then what'll happen is, and I'll make up a number. Let's say it's $100, and then you're able to save $100, and then it grows and grows and grows, and it's $1,000, and 1,000 turns into 2, and 2 turns into 4, and it just grows and grows. But it's the mindset, it's the process that leads to the result. But if it doesn't matter. I see people all the time that have big windfalls in our business, or they get a lot of money, but they spend more than what they just made. And then they're back on the treadmill. They're back on the grind. They're trying to get their nose above water so that they can breathe. And I'm like, why do you do that to yourself? Why not just learn to get by on less? That's the number one mindset, I think.
I love that.
Well, I think what Jay's describing is just like, to me, it's the gift from God, right? That he's able to even do that. Because when you're serving money, that's the aspect that you take on, right? Is the I'm going to have to go leverage this beyond what its value is. And then, now I got to get back on the treadmill. So,
well, James 1:5 says, if any of you lacks wisdom, then ask God for wisdom. It's one of the things we're told to ask for. You won't find scriptures about asking for money, right? But yet, like I said, it's preached a lot. So I'm curious to know, how do you discern, with all the opportunities presented before you, what's God's will versus what is kind of just profitable to increase your own? Like, how are you guys discerning? I come to you with a business opportunity, this is from God, and God said, if you invest in this, then it's going to prosper, because everybody comes at people with money, probably family members, oh man, hook me up with a little something. I got this idea. How do you discern the difference between what's of God and what's just something profitable opportunity to gain more riches, but it's probably going to be a distraction in your life?
Yeah. I almost think sometimes, I don't know if you get hit with this, Mike, but I almost feel like, you ever seen Shark Tank?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where, man, your cousin, your uncle, your brother, your neighbor, they all want to come by and say, hey, have I got a deal for you? And I need you to da-da-da-da-da. And I feel like, do you get that a lot?
I just want to know how your brother's going to feel when he sees this video.
I don't have a brother. But my point is, I have people all the time coming to me asking me to do certain gee whiz things, and I'm very disciplined. I'm very regimented in the way that I look at things. And then even for ministries, if a ministry is going to come to me and say, give me X for Y, I'm big on accountability, and I'm big on show me the numbers, and I'm big on I don't make it easy on anyone, a ministry or a family member that asks for money, because I do give to ministries, I do give to family members, I do give to business opportunities, but man, they feel like they've been through the meat grinder when I'm done with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't
can testify.
And I'll tell you, like I've had this happen. People will text me, hey man, I need you, if you don't mind, and they give this long explanation on a text.
Chat
And
GPT
can you send me $10,000? And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. You're like, I haven't even talked to you, looked at the white of your eyes. You want me to send you 10 grand? I mean, you got to be kidding me, right?
No.
But do you get stuff like that?
From Africa, from foreign, you get the spam. Sometimes that
Yeah,
happens.
no, I mean, we had an ex-employee who got arrested. He was an ex-veteran. We gave him an opportunity. it came out that he had like assaulted somebody, so he gets picked up by the police, and then, a few months later, my business partner was friends with his uncle, and his uncle's like, oh man, he's in trouble. If we could, just $5,000. You're like, well, man, I gave the guy a job.
Yeah.
We helped him get a cheap car. We had employees picking him up from the place where he was to come to work, and then he went and did, is he guilty? I don't know. But like,
That seems
at some
tough.
point you got to cut it off. I would say to answer your question though, I bring it back to scripture, right? And, the Bible says that wealth is built over time. It's not like if you do this and then immediately this is going to, turn, it's not a lottery ticket.
Except for some that win the lotto, maybe.
Well, how does
They
that
lose
story
it.
end?
They lose it quick too.
It sounds cool at the beginning, but how does it end usually,
Absolutely, yeah. That's a rare situation.
Yeah.
So, what would y'all say to a Christian, a believer, that is obsessed with chasing financial wealth or tying their identity to wealth?
Yeah.
I mean, I bring it back to like the story of David, right? He didn't appear to be the one that should have been chosen to be king. He was, kind of the one that was in the field, the little guy, and, liked music, and but God saw his heart, right? So it's really not that, you give and then God will give back to you. It's also the heart that you're giving behind that. You have to be a joyful giver. And, the Bible says God's not mocked. A man will reap what he sows, right?
Yeah.
So, in that same aspect, it's the heart. It's seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and then all these things will be added unto you, right? Seek first. So it's knowing God first.
How does your company do that? Do y'all have Bible studies? Do y'all pray? Do you do something at your job that is uniquely different than kind of your average corporate company?
Yes. So we have a corporate pastor, right, that we basically, pay to come in and do a Bible study once every 2 weeks. It's optional. And then he's there on the second week to just meet with people and pray with them if they have needs or concerns. We also bring in all the nonprofits that we support. They come in and they do what we call a charity chat. So it kind of gives everybody at, our place of business the opportunity to hear what the ministry has and what they can volunteer perhaps. And so that way they're always familiar, because we're always telling people, hey, we are doing these things in the community and we can't do them without you. And that when you come to work, that's what produces the income to give to these ministries that allows them to do what they're doing. And then this is Trey. Trey, tell us a little bit about what you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, and then sometimes they volunteer.
That's great.
It's less volunteer, more so than they do show up to work. But I'm glad they show up to work and do their job. And, and we've seen it. It's drawn people in from social media, right? Hey, I'm applying here because I see your place is different, right? And, the environment's different too. People say that, even the vendors that come in, man, it feels different in here. Man, your story's different than everybody else's in the market. Your business is going up. Everybody else's is flat or going down. What are y'all doing different?
And you use that as an opportunity to share Jesus with them, or are you no, not in the workplace?
No. If the opportunity arises, yeah, absolutely, I will. I can't say that I'm as overtly open about it as I probably should be.
Okay. But it does present an opportunity to shine your
absolutely.
light.
Yeah, and it's also I saw a perfect definition of a kingdom business, right? Because it's all kingdom. It's promoting the kingdom. How do we multiply that? How do we get more businesses to be kingdom businesses? And also, a second question after that, do you feel called as a person who's generating wealth for the kingdom? Do you feel called to make disciples that are doing the same thing, that are gonna use wealth and kind of disciple them in that?
I do. I've actually mentored several, entrepreneurs, right, that are, starting their business. A lot of times we've kind of focused on, guys getting out of prison or, so what we call second chance, right, entrepreneurs. And it's tough, it's like Trey always says, the people business is tough because, people come to you with great intentions and great mindsets and great ideas, but then it's the discipline comes in, hey, you got to live below your means. Hey, you have to show up to each one of these meetings. Hey, you have to come and be consistent. And then it's like, not everybody passes that test. Yeah. But I do have one guy that I've been mentoring probably for about 4 years now. And when we started mentoring him, his business was doing, I think, $250,000 a year, and he was working out in his backyard. Now he's consistently over $2 million. So that's like 10x, right? $2.5 million. And he's got a 7,000 square foot place. He's got employees, doing well. And even in that scenario, it's tough, right? Because now you got to get the heart of the giver in there as well. And that can be tough for people to overcome that. So it's like you show up, you water, you try your best. Sometimes the plant makes it, sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes it doesn't grow in your garden.
Yeah.
It grows in somebody else's.
And I would say, like, for me in my workplace, like Trey, because you've had several eyes on me meeting in our office, right? And I try to be forthright. I try to, let folks know that, this is the type of person that I am. I do believe we run our company based upon Christian principles, but I'm not good. I wish I could be like Trey or Dennis Turnipseed or Billy Jones or some of the others and just approach people and just start talking to them about Jesus and they need Jesus in their life. But it's almost like a decorum in an office that I feel like it might not be fair to do that as the owner of the business. It might make the employees, because, I suspect we have a Muslim employee, and I suspect we have other employees that might be, homosexual or a different faith or whatever.
We also get lied to enough as it is,
Yeah.
Like our employees tell us like things that we want to hear. And I think as a business owner, you'd be foolish to walk around thinking that the things you always hear are exactly the truth.
But I let them know clearly what my faith means to me, and I leave the door open if they want to, ask a question or go deeper or this, that, and the other. But I wish I could. I feel like my gifting has been making money and running businesses. It's not evangelizing. It's not getting in the pulpit of a church. It is, taking resources that God's given me, talents, right? It's a talent. Talents is money, right, in the Bible. Yeah. So I take the talents that I get, the money, and give it to different ministries. And then I'm open about, like I've had you guys in our office lots of times, and a lot of other ministries come to our office as well. But I'm not really, I could do better. I don't know how, but I could do better at trying to push it out into the workplace. But I'm also trying to walk a line, though, too.
Yeah, you got to be wise.
Maybe Mike could help with that. How he does it, who knows? But I think it's cool to hear y'all talk like this, because I don't think most people think this about people with money. Mm-hmm. And so don't take for granted everything that you're saying. People are learning from this. Even if wealthy people, could watch and hear what y'all are saying and somehow be moved in the direction of seeking first the kingdom and using monetary gain for kingdom purposes, I think it'd be great for all of us. I mean, because, there's 22,000 plus nonprofits in the city. There's a lot of places to give, but I think there's a lot more money that exists within, especially our city, to where all of them could really be taken care of. Of course, they'd have to be good stewards, but there's enough money in the kingdom to really fund a lot of things, to end poverty, to deal with orphans and widows, to look after those who are in prison, I think there's so much money in the kingdom. Now, there's been a movie that came out, I've been watching episodes, called The Religion Business. And it shows all the waste in the kingdom. People giving tithes and offering, and then it's just being wasted on stuff that you don't need. Bigger buildings, bigger parking lots, bigger salaries, just bigger. And that's probably why we can't do it. So do y'all even vet where you are giving? Because just because you're giving a tithe to a church doesn't, you can't just, I've done my part. Just like you would if I came to you and said, hey, I got a business idea, Jay, just give me the money. Don't ask too many details. I just give me the money and it's going to be fine. I'm going to do the right thing with it. Just give me a suitcase full of money. But it seems like rich people, affluent people, When you look at mega churches, that's what they do. They don't ask the church, where's the money going? They're not looking at financials. They're not looking at return on investment. They just give the money. And as a result, good, hard-earned money by wealthy people is not getting to kingdom causes. Do you ever wrestle with that? Like, hey, man, have I really vetted this church? Have I really vetted this nonprofit?
So, it's funny you say that because I feel like, and I'm a little bit older than you, probably a lot older than you, but I think in that area, I'm like summa cum laude. I go down the rabbit hole. I create accountability. I research. I actually do look at spiritual return on investment. Companies, religious organizations will send me their brochure, prospectus, maybe what they did in the previous year. I study it. How much money did they get?
Yeah.
How many people were baptized? How many people came to know the Lord? And then I'll seed them. Like let's say there's 15 ministries, which there is. There's about 15 ministries that I give to. And I'll rank them. Are they doing what they said they're doing, said they're going to do? Are they doing it well? Are they making good use of resources? And so for me, what started this journey was, I mentioned earlier I go to Second Baptist, and I mentioned earlier that, when I made $100,000 a year, and Dr. Young says, hey, give us $10,000, and it was bring your full tithe to the storehouse. And that was $10,000 many years ago, right? Then all of a sudden, let's say you make $1 million in a year. Are you supposed to bring $100,000? Or he says, I want you to tithe on the gross. Well, then it's a lot more. Or I want you to do tithe plus. I'm like, he might be asking you to give several $100,000 to Second Baptist. And I got to looking at Second Baptist, and I don't want to pick on them because you could pick on First, you could pick on a lot of other mega churches. And you look at it and you're like, this looks like a lot of waste. When you have to, at Christmas time, hire musicians to come in for a Christmas program, what's wrong with the people in the church? Playing the instruments, or the kids in the church. Why do we have to get animals to come marching, through the church? It's like, at some point, is that what it takes to convert somebody to Christianity? I mean, is it really? But then I look at the model that Jesus provided, the house church. It looks entirely different, right? I don't remember hearing about or seeing beautiful buildings and whatnot where Jesus preached. It seemed like he was in the wilderness, and he fed the 5,000. I don't think he fed them at Brenner's or Taste of Texas, right? I mean, he fed them fish and bread, you know what I mean? So it looks really different. So that's why I decided that I was going to tithe at my home church. But what I was going to do is I was going to find other ministries outside of that church that appeared to be very efficient in what they were doing. And it looked like they had a higher spiritual return on investment. It looked like the money was going further. So, like, for example, I like giving to ministries in India, for example, because the money really goes far there, and in Africa, because the money really goes far there.
And you're referring to the what the dollar is valued at there versus here.
Also, too, like you look at the standard, like Americans, our standard of living, it's like you said earlier, right? Somebody who would feel like they're impoverished here in America would be extremely wealthy in some other country. Comparatively, right? I just think that there's a lot of waste and a lot of fluff here in the U.S. And if you sent $10,000 to overseas to Africa, that money might turn into 3,000 lives for Christ. It's like, wow, that's really making a difference.
Orphanages, things like that.
Yeah. But I will tell you that, and the reason why I said I was summa cum laude, because I have given to things here in the U.S. and abroad that was a complete waste as well, though. I wanted to recall the money, and I didn't want to recall the money because I wanted the money. I wanted to recall the money and deny that ministry and go put it into a ministry that's doing a better job. Because at every case, it's no longer my money when I give it to the kingdom. And if somebody who represents that they're going to do God's work misuses the money, I don't want to have a heart problem between me and God, right?
Yeah.
I have a problem between me and that individual or that ministry. I need to go find better, more qualified ministries. And that's why there's some ministries that I used to give a lot of money to back in the day, I don't give to anymore. Is they didn't have good
stewardship.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
They weren't good stewards of it. And because of that, I had to go develop another ministry. And then if I see a ministry that's growing and, because you have goals, right? You probably want to grow 10% a year, right?
Yeah.
And then if I'm tithing to your ministry, you probably would like the people that are tithing and giving you, maybe could you increase it by 10% because we're growing 10% a year, right?
Absolutely.
But if we don't, then you have to keep adding more and more people. So I like growing with ministries that are doing well.
That's cool. You have anything on that?
Typically,
Stewardship,
what I would do is I try to get involved with the ministry somehow, like going and seeing facilities, going and volunteering, going and talking to volunteers, so that way I can kind of even the stakeholders, right, the participants, and just seeing the fruit, right, judge a tree by its fruit. And I feel that same way. Like I give outside of my church at a certain point, just because it's we're all rowing the boat together, so I'm rowing my oar, and at that point it's somebody else's turn, and so I'm going to go find some other things that I think God has called me to do, like eyes on me.
Yeah, you guys both have supported us well, and I don't know anything. There's only a few things that keep us encouraged, and the givers are a big part of that. The lives changed, the lives transferred, transformed is a big part of that, And so when you do, both of you have been to the ministry. You went to Forum Park one time and hit the street. You've been actively helping with President's Club, which is leveling guys up in every way. I saw you in a Thanksgiving video recently, serving in Greens Point, handing out to. Was that?
Yeah.
And so you guys do really. They really do what they say they're talking about right now. They do go touch it, and I think that's inspirational for people who are giving to say, hey man, get out there and go touch it, go see what it is.
Yeah.
And as a nonprofit, I don't like the transactional stuff. I would rather have relationship like I do with you guys, and I think I don't know if I could say most ministries do, but I don't want to feel like the guy coming and asking, will you help us? We need help. I love it that because we're in relationship, it's not a transaction. If I come to you asking for money for a certain thing, we should be at such a relationship till you're not going, what is Trey up to? What is he trying to do? Is he trying to, you guys already have been invested in through time, talent, and treasure to where you trust. And I just think the kingdom would just be much better supported if that's the way those who give operated, So I commend you for that, and I think you're setting a good example, and that's one of the reasons we wanted to do this podcast.
Well, for me, it's interesting you say that. I do trust, but I trust and I verify.
Yeah, I know you verify.
But point is, it's almost like I think Missouri is the show me state. Is that right? It's like there is enough doubt in me that I would go to Forum Park. I would go to Brookshire.
Yeah.
I would go with prison ministry.
Yes.
I've done all these things
Yes.
with you, right? And with other ministries, and I hate to say it, but like I was given to a ministry, all of a sudden I became a skeptic. I had to go to India to make sure the money was getting spent like I thought it was. I didn't really want to go to India, okay? But I did go to India. I was blessed because I did. And what I saw was they were being very, very good stewards of it. But it was that skepticism, that I did trust, but I need to verify. But if I saw something that was incongruent with that, then I had to go take it a level deeper, because I have given a lot of money away to ministries that they just misused it. So I always have to trust but verify.
Feel that way too?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you're like a younger version of him. Like you're rising. You're doing your thing, growing your company. So we may see you next year, and you may be a billionaire, man. I don't know. But is verification important for you?
Yeah, I think that's like a spiritual responsibility, right? It's not even our money that we're giving away.
Got to be a good steward.
So
when ministries get mad that you didn't support them, they should know it's because you want to verify, you want to have a relationship.
Well, I think
you want to be led.
For me, I'll take it as far as to look at their total budget, right? Because I don't want to become 80% of their budget, because then they're dependent on me. I'm not
so
the
common.
provider.
Yeah.
You know.
That's so common.
I'm the same way. Like, if I'm more than 10%, then
something wrong.
certainly you've got 9 other people that believe in you as much as me, right?
When you say it that way, it
So-
kind of has a different spin on it.
Yeah,
I can't come up with 9 other people.
Yeah, you can't come up.
Okay, hang on. So that's important. Break that down. Like, because if you supported 100% of Eyes on Me's budget, all right, then I hear your perspective, and then I look at this perspective and I say, well, then Eyes on Me wouldn't have to go raise any more money. We wouldn't have to build relationships with so many more. But then your side makes sense too. But speak about that. Like, why would and I see this amongst those who are good stewards with money, who have accumulated wealth, that they have that mentality. So can you explain that a little more? Why you wouldn't want to be 80% of the budget?
Yeah, no, I mean, because I'm not the provider, right? And one day I may not be able to be 80% of that budget, and I don't want to have to come to whoever it is and be like, hey, man, I'm sorry, this year, I can't do 80%. I can only do 50. And then they're like, oh, man, what about the little kids and the shoes and the,
And you're
I'm
feeling
I don't
like-
know, man. What about
Feel guilty.
What do I got to do?
So you want them to be on a path to sustainability beyond what you can do.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the plight of any kind of social program, right? Is if you're just constantly enabling someone, I don't give money to guys I see on the street corners, because I know that if I give that guy $5, well, I guarantee you he's going to be there tomorrow and the next day and the day after that.
That's a great point.
But as soon as no one gives him money, he's not going to be on that street corner anymore. He's going to be looking for another way to provide for himself.
And my thought is, it's not beyond me to make a mistake. Like, let's say, Trey, 9, you come to me, you approach me about something, you convince me, but maybe I'm relying too much on my relationship, or maybe that thing that you said that you were going to do. And really, if you can convince 9 other people of the same thing, then I feel like,
Due diligence.
You would have to give a compelling argument to 9 other people that spoke to them. Because, see, I've made mistakes before. I've given to ministries, and I was blindsided, and I didn't see it. But my thought is that you would have to convince 9 other people as well, so that, to me, in my mind, everyone would have to be duped then in that particular scenario. And I wouldn't be blindsided, like, maybe because I like the shoes that you wore, or maybe we're both from the same hometown, or whatever that thing was that convinced me to be comfortable with you. I just have to remember that I've been fooled before, and I might be getting fooled again, but it's a whole lot harder to get through 9 other people, That's how.
So is that a hesitation of fear, or is that a hesitation, or is that just good stewardship?
I mean, that's safety in the counsel of many, right?
Yeah. There you go. It's a stop. It's a stopgap, is what it is.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want a ministry to be 100% relying on me, too.
Yeah.
Either.
I think you hit it like, the nail on the head earlier when you talked about like God raising people up to do certain things, because it talks about that in Romans, right? That we're a body of many different parts and functions. And it even goes into specifics. And one of those is generosity. And it's like, if your gift is generosity, then give freely.
Yeah.
Well, I know that my gift is generosity. I know that that's what God has blessed me with. Well, you can't be generous if you don't have any resources to give.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a guy with a ministry I was given to said that, because you always want to know what your spiritual, what's the word I'm looking for? Spiritual blessings are. What is the word I'm looking for? Not blessings.
Gifts?
Giftings.
Yeah.
Your giftings, yes. And so, I had given the ministry a decent amount of money, and they said, oh, well, your gifting is that you bless others through your gifts. And I'm like, is that real? Like, is that like really a spiritual gift?
Wow.
You making that up or not? And he's like, no, it really is. That's a spiritual gift, is the ability and the capacity to give and the willingness to give. And I was like, so really? Because I never knew what my spiritual gift was, And I was like, okay, well, I can get my head around that then, if that's really,
It is a gift. Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
it's
like,
a-
go ahead.
I don't say it's a real gift, because just hearing you talk, it already made me want to give more, So the gift is flowing.
You're walking in your gift right here on the mic, sharing it. And I appreciate that y'all are willing to do that. I know we've been talking a while. We try to keep these episodes under an hour and a half, and we're approaching that mark. But I just wanted to ask you guys, you know the love of money whenever you have accumulated it and then you don't have it no more and you fall apart. Your relationship with God falls apart. Maybe you curse God. You know, maybe you say, I'm done with God. Look at what he's done to me. So what parts of your faith and identity would remain untouched if your wealth disappeared tomorrow? What parts of your faith and your identity would remain untouched if that came away, if you lost it all today or tomorrow?
I mean, I would hope all of it,
Okay.
Your faith and identity, right? Because hopefully, your life's built up in a way to where that's not the anchor, right? Because that's what God tells us. Like, don't make this your anchor, because it, has a tendency to go away.
Yeah.
And hopefully, if you're not making it your anchor, then God can bring it back. In the same way it leaves, it comes back.
I'm gonna go back to what I said earlier. I mean, and I know you guys don't believe me when I say this, but it's a burden.
Yeah.
You think it's a blessing to have a lot.
Yeah.
It's a burden. And if God took it from me, you would say, oh, he took away your blessing. I'm like, he took away my burden. Because I spend so much time and energy vetting ministries, being involved with ministries, being a good steward of ministries, making money, making sure I give it, keeping my financial household and my business solvent so that I can give. I mean, it really is. I mean,
It's draining.
Yeah, and I don't want to say it in like a super negative way, but it's consuming.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot involved with it.
Yeah.
So and people think, it'd be so great, if you just had a lot of money, and it's just a different set of problems. It's
there's a
still
song.
problems.
Different responsibility.
Yeah. And I'll tell you,
Money, more problems is real.
Right.
but I'll tell you though, there's a lot of people that rely on you though too. So
Yeah.
you
Wow.
probably
Most
feel
poor
that.
people don't get sued.
Yeah, that's
Just
true.
tell you that. Most
There's
poor
nothing to
people
sue
don't
for.
get sued. Yeah, there's nothing there. And it is a different set of problems, because it's almost like ignorance is bliss in a lot of ways. It's like even the situations you was describing earlier about, you have this level of income that you say you've earned, right? Well, now the IRS comes in and takes their portion of that, of which you didn't even get because you're using that to run the business that you have.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, how do I pay this debt that I have on money that I can't even spend on anything, or maybe I don't even have it yet? And that's like one of the burdens, right? And
You got the employees, the burden of families that are fed through your company. That's weight on your shoulders too, right? You got to keep them employed.
Yeah.
You don't want to lose people and watch them lose their job.
Well, yeah, no, obviously, no, we definitely wouldn't want that, right?
Yeah.
And the other thing that's kind of created from that is, the preservation of it. Now, a lot of times you can look at like, well, okay, I've got this, now I've got to preserve it, right? Because of inflation and these different economic environments. Let's go put it in the stock market. Okay, well, that dips 30%. It's all these things that you could put it in. You could put it in real estate. Okay, well, real estate drops, right? Because we go into a recession, or we have a mortgage crisis, or, there's all these things in life that can happen to anybody, right? And they happen to all of us.
So when COVID happened, was your business up and running?
Yeah, we were, there was I remember a moment where I'm taking, these envelopes, right? And, and we're, I've written the checks to pay for bills, and I'm like, all this may not even matter in a few months,
I remember when COVID happened, and for our industry, crude oil traded negative. What did you think about that for a minute? It traded negative. If you owned it, it was a burden to even own it. And I remember everyone in our industry was shutting down. I mean, it took a year or two for some companies to come back to work. And so here we are trying to figure out how to make money to keep from not going bankrupt during COVID. And meanwhile, I have all these ministries that I'm given to, and I'm hearing about how the need is greater right now because, you know, they need food programs and people aren't working and they need to be fed. And when I'm like, I need to give as much or more at a time when I don't have any income. How am I going to do that? You know? And I don't know how I or we did do that, but we did. We still managed to give to all the ministries that we were involved with the same amount that we agreed to at a time when we weren't even making money. Like, how that happened, I mean, I don't know. But, I mean, that's what I mean by it's a burden, though, you know? Yeah. And as I transition in life right now, I'm 61, and so I'm starting to look at, you know, what a retirement might look like for me. And I've come to the realization I'm not going to retire. I'm always going to work, right? But what work looks like is going to change. And for me, most of my life I've been chasing prosperity, right? Trying to earn a living, right? And right now, at this season of life, I'm trying to think about posterity. How do I want to be remembered? Because I'm not going to be here, right? How are my kids going to remember me? Ministries, friends, business associates, etc. And one aspect of posterity is you're giving it away, right? And maybe it's not money, but you're giving away the control of your company. Maybe, for example, control your household. You're giving more and more to your kids, and so that's the season of life I'm in right now is posterity and how that looks, because you know I'm not going to be here. And the other thing is I can't give. Let's say I wanted to leave a bunch of money to my kids. If I left a bunch of money to my kids, but no financial stewardship, no financial training, then that wouldn't be fair to them. So I either got to train them up on how to be good stewards, or I need to just give it to a church somewhere or university or something else, you know. So I'm physically taking time right now to invest in my kids, get them involved, have them look at the numbers and the businesses and meet with all the partners and everything, because I tell them that you're either going to be cut out of the will, not because I don't love you, because I do love you, and to give you all of this without the acumen to be able to know how to run it, it would be a burden, right? So it's backwards.
That's good. Well, I thought about Philippians 4:12-13, which states, I know, this is Paul, of course, he says, I know how to be brought low, and I know how to abound. In any and every circumstance, I have learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance and need. And he says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And I think you guys are doing this through Christ, and you've acknowledged getting wealth, giving. It's our gift. This is what God is doing in our life, and you do it through Christ. Me being on the mission field, it's not me. It's through Christ who strengthens me, right? And people who are going to work every day, and you know, whether you're middle class or whether you're just surviving check to check. If anything, I think you could watch this show and go, man, I need to learn how to be content, whether I have abundance or whether I don't. Yeah. Because problems, things, obstacles, weight, burdens, it hits us all. In this life, Jesus didn't promise us that we would not have that stuff in our life. So, like Paul said, we need to learn how to handle what's right in front of us. We need to be good stewards over the little bit, and then maybe he'll bless you with more, or maybe your lot in life is to stay in a certain lane. Maybe it's not for you to get rich, because some people get rich and ruin their lives and end up committing suicide or hurting people or sleeping with someone's wife, or, you know, it just becomes chaotic. Whereas if you could trade that and say, hey, you know, if I wouldn't have got wealthy, I was good when I was just in that little 2-bedroom home. I was good when I was in that apartment. But for others, they can handle that. They can steward that. They can do good things with that. So wouldn't you say Paul pretty much nailed it? And I want to give you guys the opportunity to just have any closing thoughts that you might want to say in case something you want to add or clear up before we go.
Yeah, no, I think he did nail it. I mean, because that contentment is what Paul's describing, right, is being content with what you have. And that does not change even as you get and obtain wealth and all these other things. You don't become more content because you can go do anything that you want to do. And I think God views us the same way as he was talking about his children. He's not going to want to give us some, ability to go do all these things if we're going to destroy ourselves. And he sees that in us. So that's why it's a gift. It's a gift from God to be able to obtain wealth and manage it properly, and to
beautiful,
have a giver's heart, right?
Yeah.
So 2025 was a super rough year for me. I had 4 major surgeries on my knee, and I felt like there were a couple times I was looking at death, right? I mean, I had a staph infection in my body, and I was really close to going septic, right? Man, I got to tell you, you really contemplate life when you're suffering, and that's where I was. I was suffering, and you want to break it down, you want to distill, and you say, why did all that happen? What was it all about? And this and that and the other. And the one of the things that I learned through that suffering was that there were so many times where you want to use the statement and use the word I, or say that you had done something or accomplished something. And when I realized how helpless you are when something, a parasite or a molecule or atom, whatever it was, a virus, something you can't even see is getting ready to take your life, right? It really makes you ponder life. And then you realize the fragility, how fragile life is, and then you realize that everything in life it's kind of an illusion, Really, life is an illusion. And that's why I said before, like some of the things at work we do, it's really a game, And really, I think what I learned through all of that was that I really didn't do anything in my life. I felt like I was in control. I have never been in control. It's always been God for me in my life. And for me to try to take credit from him for all the things that I've been blessed with, it wouldn't be fair, So I think the term blessed to be a blessing. Blessed to be a blessing.
That's good.
God blesses me because he knows my heart, and he knows I'm not going to hang on to it too tightly, and I'm not going to say, look what I did, look at this plane, look at this, look at my grill, look at this, it's I don't want the focus on me because I didn't do it.
Yeah.
I can honestly tell you, like, the guy that was failing out of high school, that was failing out of college, is now successful.
Yeah.
I didn't do it.
Wow.
I was obedient. I was disciplined. I listened to God. And now for me to try to hold on to it all, it just wouldn't be fair. So I try to be a blessing.
It's cool. I didn't think this episode would turn out to be one that would highlight the gift of giving, especially with the title that we chose for it. But I feel like you guys have really highlighted what the gift of giving looks like, from those who have an abundance to be able to give. And I think it's beautiful to see that God's giving to you, and your mind is, how do I need to give it? Steward it. So thank y'all for coming on the show and being a part of this. This is a little bit different and unique for us, and I think it was a great discussion, and I appreciate you taking time on a Sunday evening away from your family to be here with us and talk to our people. Yeah, right after our prison ministry for you. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I hope that you got some valuable information, some nuggets from this. When I think of some of the things that they said today, it sounds like something Paul would have wrote in Philippians. And so just hang on to that, man. Godliness with contentment is great gain. And so learn to be content in all circumstances. He may make you a rich man, rich woman one day, but he may not. Just find yourself seeking first the kingdom, which is God's way of doing things. Seek to do things his way and allow him to work that out in his timing, according to his will. Thank you guys for showing us that God has blessed us to be a blessing to others. Thank y'all for tuning in. I want to remind you to like, to share, to subscribe, ring the notification to notify you when a new episode comes out. And until we see you again, God bless. We're out.
Something ain't right.
What?